It's a lot.
Meek Mill and P. Diddy matching outfits picture goes viral after Meek Mill comes up in this lawsuit, right? You got this lawsuit where this dude is suing P. Diddy and people been going through it. He brought, I believe, a Young Miami name came up in it, like about her cousin, doing some things.
Cause you missed this. Meek Mills, well, he said a Philly rapper, you understand? And it was redacted in the paperwork to that, because first of all, it had Meek Mills, it had Stevie J, they had redacted their names, and they had Usher, and they redacted their names and just said a performer of the Super Bowl and a Philly rapper. Everybody kind of knew back in the day that Meek Mills and Puff was a little too friendly. Anytime two rappers or two people in the industry come dressed up alike.
His name Twan, he from our neighborhood. He was married to Tanisha Arnold. So the broad played Pam on Martin Lawrence. We went to the party with her. I mean, it was matter of fact, it was a Set It Off party. Jada Pickett, Vivica Fox, all of them was there. You know what I'm saying? It was just, seemed like Puff and Tupac was like a couple, seemed like to me. It was just a lot of weird shit going on, you know what I'm saying? The vibes ain't there. I guess that's what Tupac was talking about, the Illuminati and shit.
50 came over to my house. He met me at the apartment because I overheard the conversation about these guys wanted him dead. So he asked me, did I have a vest? I said, yeah, I got a bulletproof vest. So I had some extra vests because I used to buy them from officers and stuff like that. And he came over, he tried the vest. It was too big for him. You understand what I'm saying? The vest was too big for him.
Tupac died. And then there was the fight between who was the top rapper now, Nas and Jay-Z. And then the next thing you know, Nas has a nervous breakdown and he's taken out of the game and it's all Jay-Z.
What happens when two of hip-hop's biggest names collide? Not in the studio, but in a battle of secrets, power, and control. Meek Mill, the voice of the streets, has dropped a bombshell, accusing the legendary Diddy of hiding a sinister agenda behind his empire. But here's where it gets even more twisted. 50 Cent, another heavyweight in the game, may have known about this long before anyone else. He's been throwing subtle jabs for years, mocking, hinting, even warning fans about what goes on behind the industry's closed doors. This isn't just another celebrity feud. It's a web of leaked contracts, secret alliances, and chilling revelations that threaten to change the way we see the music industry forever. And the question everyone's asking, if Meek Mill and 50 Cent are speaking out, how many others have stayed silent? Meek Mill's rise to fame is a story of raw talent, unyielding determination, and survival against all odds. Born and raised in the unforgiving streets of Philadelphia, Meek grew up surrounded by hardship. He lost his father at a young age, leaving his family to navigate a life of poverty and struggle. But in the chaos, Meek found an outlet: music. His sharp lyrics and gritty storytelling captured the essence of street life, and his relentless work ethic set him apart. Starting with underground mixtapes, Meek became a local legend. Tracks like Dreams and Nightmares resonated with those who had lived through similar struggles, and his authenticity was undeniable. It wasn't long before Rick Ross noticed him and brought him into the Maybach Music Group, giving Meek a platform to shine on a global scale. His alliance with Ross and later collaborations with icons like Jay-Z solidified his status as one of hip-hop's brightest stars. Meek wasn't just a rapper, he became a movement, celebrated as the voice of resilience in an industry often criticized for chasing trends over substance. Yet, as his fame grew, so did the shadows around him. Meek began noticing cracks in the glamorous facade of the industry he had fought so hard to be part of. Cryptic tweets and interviews hinted at disillusionment with the power structures behind the scenes. At the heart of it all stood Diddy, a mogul who had built empires, shaped stars, and amassed unparalleled influence. While Diddy was revered as a kingmaker, whispers of exploitation and control began to follow his name. Was Meek's meteoric rise the result of his talent and hard work alone? Or was he another chess piece in a game controlled by powerful players like Diddy? The questions lingered, unspoken, but impossible to ignore. By 2020, Meek Mill's frustration with the music industry was no longer a secret. It was written all over his Twitter feed. In a series of cryptic posts, he hinted at a growing disillusionment with the very system he had spent his life climbing. Phrases like "loyalty isn't what it seems" and "some deals aren't worth the price" sent his fan base into a frenzy, sparking debates and raising questions about what or who he was referring to. At first, the tweets seemed like typical venting, the kind of frustration any artist might express in a highly competitive and cutthroat industry. But insiders began to paint a different picture. Meek's words weren't random. They were aimed at specific individuals. Among these names was Diddy, a titan of the industry and someone Meek had once looked up to. Behind closed doors, Meek was said to be battling against powerful forces. Contracts, power plays, and hidden agendas were reportedly at the center of the conflict. Diddy, known for his larger-than-life persona and ability to shape careers, now appeared to be one of the figures Meek was challenging. Despite the intrigue, the media remained eerily silent. Stories that could have dominated headlines were either ignored or buried under glowing features about Diddy's success and influence. Meanwhile, Meek's frustration grew louder, but no one in power seemed willing to address it. Why wasn't anyone listening? Why were these concerns being swept under the rug? And more importantly, who stood to lose the most if Meek's claims were taken seriously? As the cracks in Meek's perfect image widened, it became clear that this was more than just a personal frustration. It was a challenge to an entire system designed to silence dissent and protect the powerful. As time went on, the cracks in the industry's facade grew wider, and it became clear that Meek Mill's frustrations weren't random outbursts. They were warnings of something far more sinister. He began using his platform to shed light on what he called the machine. According to Meek, this wasn't just a metaphor, it was a shadowy network that dictated the careers of artists, manipulated their choices, and profited from their struggles while silencing dissent. Meek's revelations didn't exist in isolation. Soon, other artists began to echo his concerns, and a pattern emerged. Old interviews resurfaced, like one from Mace, who had accused Diddy of exploiting him early in his career, claiming he was robbed of his dues. Rappers like the LOX and even 50 Cent had at different times hinted at similar experiences. These stories shared a chilling commonality: power concentrated in the hands of a few, wielded to control and silence the many. Behind the scenes, Meek's refusal to fall in line made him a target. Former allies began to distance themselves, their silence speaking louder than words. Industry insiders whispered of blacklisting attempts, while Meek stood his ground. For him, this wasn't about risking his career. It was about exposing a system he believed was inherently toxic and exploitative. What the public didn't realize was that Meek's fight wasn't just personal. His story reflected an entire industry built on protecting the powerful while sacrificing the vulnerable. The tales of exploitation and control were not exceptions. They were the rule. Meek's defiance brought a question to the forefront. How many artists had been silenced? And more chillingly, how far would the machine go to maintain its grip on an empire of influence and profit? The pressure that had been building in the shadows finally exploded when leaked documents and insider testimonies began to surface. The first bombshell came from an anonymous former assistant who claimed to have witnessed the dark underbelly of the music industry. According to this insider, contracts offered to artists under major labels were deliberately vague, designed not only to confuse but to trap them into long-term financial and creative servitude. Screenshots of these contracts began circulating online, showing clauses that gave labels near total control over an artist's music, image, and public appearances. These weren't typical contract terms. They were designed to strip artists of their autonomy, to lock them into a cycle of endless debt and control, all while claiming to be supporting their career. Fans were stunned, demanding answers. But for those in the industry, this wasn't a shocking revelation. It was business as usual. The music industry had long been built on the backs of artists who signed away their freedom for the illusion of fame and success. But the leaked documents were just the beginning, A shocking video resurfaced from an industry party years earlier, capturing an intense moment between Meek Mill and Diddy. In the clip, Meek can be heard saying, "I'm not signing that, you know why." The video cuts off abruptly, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats wondering what exactly Meek was refusing. The implications were immediate. What was in that contract? And more disturbingly, how many other artists had unknowingly signed away their careers to the same power structures? This was no longer just about Meek Mill. This was a deep dive into a system that had been exploiting artists for years. And as the footage and documents spread, the public began to wake up to the chilling reality behind the glitz and glamour of the music industry. Diddy's influence stretched far beyond the confines of his personal empire. His reach touched almost every corner of the entertainment world, from Hollywood to Wall Street. He wasn't just a mogul in the music industry. He was a master at building connections with the most powerful names in media, business, and culture. He rubbed shoulders with industry giants like Jay-Z and Oprah, gaining access to networks that could not only elevate his status but also protect him from scrutiny. His connections gave him the power to shape public perception, control media narratives, and keep potential threats at bay. When stories emerged that challenged his empire, they were swiftly deflected or discredited, often with the help of powerful media allies who kept negative press at arm's length. Behind the scenes, Diddy had the means to silence those who dared to speak out, making sure the whispers of exploitation remained just that, whispers. But the protection didn't stop with the media. Journalists who attempted to investigate the darker side of Diddy's business practices were often met with lawsuits, career sabotage, or threats of legal action. Investigative pieces that could have been career-defining were quietly swept under the rug, buried by an army of legal and PR professionals whose job was to keep his image pristine. For artists who dared to challenge the system, the consequences were even more severe. Diddy's camp was known for labeling outspoken voices as difficult, disloyal, or ungrateful. Such labels effectively blacklisted these artists from receiving opportunities, ensuring they would be pushed to the margins of the industry. This wasn't just about one man protecting his empire. It was about an entire system that prioritized loyalty to power over the justice and well-being of its talent. Was Diddy's influence a tool for success? Or was it a weapon of suppression, keeping the machine running while stifling any attempts at disruption? The tipping point came in a rare live interview, where Meek Mill, with a level of intensity that stunned viewers, accused Diddy of orchestrating deliberate smear campaigns against artists who refused to comply with the unspoken rules of the industry. Meek revealed that these campaigns were far from isolated incidents. According to him, they were carefully calculated moves designed to discredit and isolate those who dared to speak out, to make sure no one would take their complaints seriously. It wasn't just about silencing voices. It was about burying them before they could ever be heard. The revelation sent shockwaves through the fan base. For years, Diddy had been seen as a kingmaker, the mogul who built empires, shaped careers, and commanded respect. But now, that image was cracking. Fans flooded social media, demanding transparency, accountability, and answers. Was Meek's accusation the truth? Were these smear campaigns real? And if so, how many artists had been destroyed by them? But despite the overwhelming public outcry, the industry's response was chilling in its silence. There were no official statements from Diddy, no denials or clarifications. It was as if the powerful machine that had been operating in the shadows for so long was holding its breath, waiting for the storm to pass. This silence, this refusal to address the allegations head-on, spoke louder than any words ever could. It was the final confirmation that the system Meek had been battling against was not only real, but it was also untouchable. Diddy's power wasn't just about influence, it was about control, and the industry was complicit in maintaining it. The world was left to wonder, was Meek right all along? Had Diddy's grip on the music industry been so strong that it could silence anyone who threatened to disrupt the status quo? The tipping point came in an unexpected live interview where Meek Mill, with unmatched intensity and conviction, accused Diddy of orchestrating smear campaigns against artists who refused to comply with his control. In the interview, Meek revealed something shocking. These smear campaigns weren't isolated incidents, but a strategic pattern designed to discredit anyone who dared to challenge the status quo. According to Meek, Artists who spoke out or demanded better treatment were systematically targeted and isolated by a network of false accusations and public degradation, ensuring their voices would never be heard. The public was rocked. For years, Diddy had been viewed as an untouchable mogul, the mastermind behind some of the most successful careers in hip-hop, an industry legend who had built a fortune on loyalty and power. But now, with Meek's Bombshell revelation, everything seemed to unravel. Fans quickly took to social media demanding transparency and accountability from Diddy and questioning the integrity of the industry that had allowed this behavior to continue unchecked. They wanted answers. What did Diddy really know? How many artists had been silenced before Meek had the courage to speak out? However, the industry's response was chilling. There was no official statement from Diddy. No clarifications, no denials, just silence. The quietness in the face of such explosive accusations was deafening. It was as if the very system Meek had fought against was shutting down any attempt at exposing the truth. This silence confirmed what many had feared. The industry's elite were untouchable. Their grip on power was so strong, it could silence not just voices, but entire movements. So, what's really going on behind the scenes? Are there more stories left untold? Comment below with your thoughts and theories. Do you believe Meek's accusations? Or is there more to the story than meets the eye? Let's dive deeper together.